Power on.
The following is a presentation of the Sovryn Technica podcast feed.
The man of tomorrow is here for a little something that we call Sovryn Tech X, or for short, it's STX, which kind of rhymes with sex, but it's only about half as good. Certainly nowhere near even that when we're talking about when you're rocking with none other than Mrs. Sovryn. Woo-hoo!
Thank you.
Oh, boy.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad that you exist, and certainly glad that you're here for another thrilling episode of Sovryn Tech X. Yeah, I think the STX thing is going to catch on. I think people are gonna like that. I know people already. We this is only the second episode we've done of Sovryn Tech X. First one, everybody loved it. I mean, they just absolutely loved it.
It was mind-blowing. Yeah.
For some, it was. That's pretty much what they said, and we got some great comments on it too. Go ahead, what do you got?
Yeah, you had a cigarette afterwards. It was really interesting. I've never seen you do that before.
I know. I mean, I'm so straight edge, but I was like, no, I need a cigarette, and you need to get under the desk, and it was, man, what a good time. It's the things that you don't record, but maybe we should. Anyway. So yeah, we're back for some more, and we've got some cool subjects to get into, and we'll see really where it goes, because last time, we had this whole show planned. We're going to talk about this, we're going to talk about that, and in some ways we didn't get past like the first subject, right? Which we were just talking about Dune.
But what's not to love talking about Dune for 2 hours?
I agree.
We could keep talking about it for another 6.
Totally, easily. So, well, anyway, we've got some stuff to get into this one. Before we get into it, today, as of this recording, which would be June 5th, I believe, June 5th, 2023, a day that will probably live in infamy, and that partly has to do with the Worldwide Developers Conference that Apple held today. Now, I know, Ellen, you couldn't give a rat shit about about anything Apple does.
So I have important things to do with that rat shit, so I'm not going to give it to the Apple developers. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I watched it. Sort of half watched it at points because this thing was long. This is a long. I mean, I don't know what, didn't they used to call them keynotes? It doesn't matter. It was a very long presentation. They announced a lot of stuff, and now I'm going to do a deeper dive at another point. I'm not going to. I mean, Ellen's time is precious, and she is precious, and we're not here to talk about things that are only semi-precious, and even that's debatable when it comes to Apple stuff. But I will say, I have, and actually I'm going to ask you a question on this. All right, let me start off with the good. I think a lot of what they announced, of course, I use iPhone now, I use an iPad, I use all that stuff, and I'm largely pretty impressed with it. And I thought a lot of what they were laying out with iOS 17 actually looked pretty cool, and iPadOS 17 and all that looked pretty interesting. Some of that stuff, like there's the transcribing of messages, or basically you can have the phone answer for you, and they can take a message for you. Now, Pixels have been able to do this for over 2 years. It's not like it's really a new thing. It's just new for Apple, whatever. But all that was fine. I thought what they announced for macOS and for their new computers, they had like the Mac Studio Pro, the Mac Pro, a new MacBook Air, and man, I'll just say this right here, I want that 15-inch MacBook Air. I mean, I want that pretty bad.
It was the first thing you said to me when I came home today.
I was impressed. Yeah. I mean, that is a beast of a machine. And I am, it'd be a great way. I mean, I'm still rocking this Windows 7 machine, and its ability to play Age of Empires 2 is somewhat limited. Certainly wouldn't be on the MacBook Air, which I actually had a great friend of the show test out. It's like, hey, before I get too hot and bothered about getting a MacBook or something, does Age of Empires 2 work on it? And bam, he tried it out that night and it worked beautifully. So anyway.
I'm sold. Get this man a MacBook.
Right. We haven't tried out that new Roman pack. expansion pack for Age of Empires 2 that came out on the 16th of May.
Tears of the Kingdom came out.
I know. You know what? All right, hold on. Now that was another quick thing that I was surprised Apple talked about. They talked about gaming. I'm kind of iffy on, like, they've never been serious about it, so I find it kind of weird that they did talk about it. They even had Hideo Kojima come out, who of course did Metal Gear Solid and all that. That was kind of weird. But anyway, Tears of the Kingdom. Let's talk about this for a minute. I talked about it a little bit in some of the Wednesday Q&As for patrons only, but you're the one. I mean, you're really deep dived on this. Like, you are.
Yeah, it's part of my addictive personality with video games.
Yeah.
I just can't put it down once I pick it up. I'm sucked into the story.
I mean, you jumped off Sky Island and you're done. And so what's...
Yeah, and a lot of the things that you've learned about that game have been through watching me play.
Which I gave you credit for. I said, it's like, yeah, like a lot of what I'm telling you about, it's all because I'm watching Ellen do it. Because I just sit next to you and I love it because it's so funny. I think there's this kind of trope out there, or this pathetic trope or whatever, that oh no, the gals just sit there and watch the guy play, or something like that. Oh no, not in this household, baby. It's the other way around. But go ahead.
No, I was just thinking back to that time in my life where I did watch someone else play video games, and it was not a great experience. But you seem to enjoy sitting there watching me play video games.
Yeah, I've done it my whole life where I've watched, best friends or whatever, which you and I were best friends before, we got married. But yeah, I mean, that's fine as long as they're good at it. The fortunate thing is that all my best friends from my life have been really fucking great at video games.
Yeah.
In fact, that might be part of the reason that they're my best friends, because like they can do something better than me.
Maybe, or they're just obsessed enough to spend the time to become an expert.
Yeah, I don't know. Whatever it is, anyway. I love it. I enjoy it. I like seeing skill on display, and you certainly do that.
Or determination, at least.
Yeah, determination's good too. Sure, there's something to be said for that. So, Tears of the Kingdom, Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom. Greatest game ever made? What do you think?
Wow. That's hard for me to say. I guess I'd have to think about it a lot. But as far as capability, things that you collect, the exploration of the map, being sold into the storyline, all of that. Like, I really, really love this game.
Yeah.
In part because I spent so much time in Breath of the Wild and got to know the world there, and it was very charming, very simplistic, very calming to like ride your horse around and cook meals, and
they're using the same map from Breath of the Wild, right? It's
and even
same
to,
Hyrule, yeah.
Kill the monsters, but then in this game, the map is largely the same. I mean, the regions are the same, but the topography so different because of the upheaval. Things are not where they used to be, and additionally, you have all of these cave systems that were not originally in Breath of the Wild. And you go into these caves and there's new creatures. There's these like ridiculously silly monsters in there that are so clownish. It's really great.
Well, it's insane how big this world is, because the underworld is the same size pretty much as the overworld, as Hyrule itself.
Yeah, and not to mention, you also have the Sky Islands, and you have these Zonai devices, which you can build essentially like an airplane and cruise around wherever the heck you want to go in Hyrule. So there's this like very three-dimensional, like the game is almost as tall as it is wide. Right,
tall and deep. Like, it's amazing. Actually, if you want to hear more about the Zonai and their potentially occult proclivities, you might want to listen to my most recent Wednesday Q&A for patrons only. If you're not a patron yet, go sign up, Sovryn, or patreon.com/SovrynTech. And I did a whole dive on a lot of the Kabbalistic, occult imagery, all kinds of shit that's in this game. But anyway, please continue about this being whether or not you think it's the greatest game ever made. Or, here's the question. Do you think it's that much better than Breath of the Wild?
Wow, that's a good question. So I do like that in this game you have different powers than in Breath of the Wild. In some cases I wish like I still had the ability to freeze ice into cubes or something like that.
Right.
But it's fun to have this variety. Like, you can ascend in this game now, or you can travel through solid objects, and that just gives you this whole new range of motion, of being able to escape when you feel stuck somewhere. And like being able to build things with Ultra Hand, very cool. I love that.
Yeah,
and that's certainly an improvement on the Breath of the Wild game.
Yeah, in some very real ways, even though I feel like it might be a little more limited than what I was hoping it would be based on kind of the initial gameplay trailers that came out months ago before the game was released and all that. But I've always said the greatest game that could ever get built would be the MacGyver game, meaning it's a game where it's open world and you basically can just make anything out of anything. This comes pretty close with the Ultra Hand, fusibility, and all those abilities that allow you to, concoct these incredible creations. But just as far as what I've seen, it's incredible. It's amazing. I'm not saying anything bad about it. I'm just saying it's slightly more limited than necessarily what I expected. But in a very real way, you can cut down a tree and make shit out of wood. I mean, which is impressive.
And another thing is that this game introduces an aspect of the absurd where you can only fuse one object to your weapon or to your shield. But that could be literally any object. Like, you could fuse a fish to the end of your spear.
Yeah, and it looks very funny.
Yeah.
Like, I saw you, fuse a broken arm to it, and it was just flopping while you were running around.
Exactly, yeah. So I think that is also something that's very unique that other games just have not done. Is that sort of ability to create the unexpected, the absurd.
Yeah.
It makes for some very funny moments.
Yeah. So, all right. Would you say which game is better? Tears of the Kingdom or the aforementioned Age of Empires 2?
They're not even the same type of game.
Well, I get it. It's not the same sport. It's not even the same league. I understand. But all right, that's fine. That's your answer.
All right. It's not fair to compare them, but you put me in this position.
Yes. As I do many.
I have no choice but to respond.
That's right. Speak, slave.
Okay, so Tears of the Kingdom obviously is a better game.
Really?
Yes.
That's impressive.
It's harder. I feel like it's harder because there are scenarios, there are monsters, there are creatures where you might not be able to run away, and you have to just be strong enough to fight them. And when you're just a fraction of the way through the game, like I am, and you don't have the full set of hearts, it's impossible. Like, I've tried certain battles 12, 15 times in a row, am unable to beat it, and I just have to run away and decide I'll come back later.
Yeah.
Usually I use those opportunities to learn some sort of new strategy, but there are times where you really just need to be stronger, and that's not a problem that I had in Breath of the Wild, but in Tears of the Kingdom, it's a problem.
Yeah, well, there we go. So better than Age of Empires 2. That's a hell of a thing. But I agree. I know it's not fair to kind of compare them, but I still think, I guess the question could be slightly reframed in is that which game would you spend more time of your life in?
Oh, definitely Zelda.
Yeah. Okay.
So another thing about this game is that, interestingly, it reminds me of several other games, which of course isn't that strange, but at least Mario Sunshine is a Nintendo game.
Yep.
And I feel like they introduced some of the elements of Mario Sunshine into this game knowingly, purposefully.
Oh yeah, like Flood. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then the underworld and parts of that, I mean, that's a direct rip from Skyrim.
Well, yes.
Because Skyrim also had the giant underground glowing mushrooms. And it had the same creepy vibe.
Yeah, I think you're right in that, there's a lot of elements of it. I mean, the idea that... So, when you think of what... Well, it depends on who you ask. What the greatest Zelda game of all time is. Certainly before Tears of the Kingdom. you'd get answers of either A Link to the Past for Super Nintendo or Ocarina of Time. Especially A Link to the Past, like it's just kind of the same deal where there is a complete underworld to the overworld, to Hyrule in that. And you know, there's varying ways that you can get to it, that you can kind of teleport to it. It's not like jumping into a cave like you do in Tears of the Kingdom. So, I mean, it's had an underworld before, but I think you're right. More of the elements of the underworld definitely rip from Skyrim, which that's a great comparison. I think that's a better game to even compare it with because you've played Skyrim so fucking much. And I say that with respect.
I mean, I'm kind of a millionaire.
Yeah, right. So, with Skyrim, or what would you say is the better game? Tears of the Kingdom or Skyrim?
Oh, holy crap! This is a tough.
Yeah, but
one.
I think they're more in line with it. They're action RPGs.
Yes, they're more in line. In
Yeah.
Skyrim, however, you can become a werewolf or a vampire.
Yeah.
In this game, that's not the case.
Yeah.
Tough call. This one has the Sky Islands though, which I think gives it an edge.
Yep.
The
Yep.
Sky Islands make a really, really cool gameplay. Because there's even some of these Sky Islands that have lower rates of gravity.
Mm-hmm.
So you jump and you're like floating or flying farther.
Right.
You're moving slower.
Yeah, I mean, I would think the ability to make vehicles and all this, which might even have more importance later in the game. I know you're only so far in it. Very far, but so far. I think that gives it an edge, perhaps, over Skyrim. Yeah, I mean, Skyrim has a lot of replayability because of you have more control of the creation of the character, I would imagine.
Yeah, that is while you can choose to be any creature you want to be.
Yeah, which is really cool. Yeah, no, I get it that it's tough to really say, but
which is impressive to say because Skyrim was made like 10 years ago.
It's insane that still gets updates and that still gets played the fuck out of it.
And it's still such a great game.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, I agree. So Tears of the Kingdom, I mean, if you're giving it out of 10, what do you got? 10 out of 10?
Yeah, I mean, no negative marks for me. It's pretty much perfect.
Right. Yeah. I talked some of my experience in some of the Q&As, which people can go and listen to. But yeah, definitely you're the one, like I'm seeing you go through it. I have like the strategy guide arriving on the 16th, and I think I might jump into it then. And I explained why you like to use strategy guides. It's not for reasons that most people use strategy guides, but that's something else I explained in the Q&A. I think I'm like trying to sell people to get into the Q&As. I don't know why, but anyway. So, all right, 10 out of 10. There you go. And I agree. I mean, I completely agree. Like what I see of it and what I've played as well, it's a perfect game in pretty much every way. I have little quibbles with some style, but it's just style problems. It's not gameplay problems.
Yeah,
whatsoever.
and I have a quibble with some of the recipes. Like, you put together things that you think would make a delicious meal, but it turns into just, like, an average meal. And you're like, well, what the heck? Yeah. I thought I was going to make some, like, berry souffle, but the game doesn't recognize that.
No.
So I want the strategy guide so that I can know what recipes I can make.
Good call. Because there's not a lot of vegetarian options, and that's a problem.
No, but it's a video game. So who the fuck cares?
Right. Well, there's not a lot of vegetarian options in the real world. We're going to talk about that shortly. But before I do, I know, that's a segue. That's a pro.
You're an expert.
I am. I've been doing this for a long, long time. But before we get into that, that's just a little preview. Something I do want to wrap up kind of this conversation somewhat around gaming and really, also where we started off talking about Apple. So Apple did announce it's not coming out till 2024. And the thing's going to cost $3,500, which is fucking insane. Apple did announce a AR, augmented reality and virtual reality headset called the Vision Pro. Already had one great listener come up with the name saying I should call it the Jizz-On Pro. And I was like, well, it does look like ski goggles. So put ski goggles in quotes. So anyway,
you should have seen the hand gesticulations he was just making. That explains the laughter.
Yes, yeah, but that's all right. I think half my audience is a bunch of pervs, so when I say ski goggles, I know where their mind's going to go in the first place. Anyway, so this, so the Jizz-On Pro, I'm sorry, the Vision Pro from Apple. I mean, I was already, and I've done whole episodes about it, about what we knew going into it. I was already very negative about it, admittedly. I really want to be wrong about it. I'm going to do a deeper dive on all of this, on the whole WWDC, in another episode. But what I saw, I mean, some of it really impressed, but a big thing that's got to happen is I got to see it used in the real world. Like I got to hear real world reactions, not like the perfect pre-constructed, pre-taped, conference that Apple put on today, to really know just how good this is. But there's a lot about it that, yes, is creepy, and B, I don't necessarily believe a lot of the performance claims, a lot of other things. Anyway, and the price is a massive issue. But the reason I'm bringing it up, so I'm negative on this thing, and honestly, I think it's going to be dead on arrival. Can Apple play the long game? And, they have all the money in the world, almost literally. So can they push this 10 years down the line and then somebody will figure out what it's actually good for? Yeah, that's a possibility. But ultimately, I think augmented reality and virtual reality, in the present world that we live in, unless we're living in like Ian M. Banks's Culture series or something, in the present world we live in is ineffective, almost pointless, perhaps even malicious in application, in the world that we live in. So even though I used to be really bullish on it, and Ellen, I know you've been a long time listener, I'm sure you've heard me say, oh yeah, no, we can do all, virtual reality is going to be awesome, we can do all these kinds of great things, whatever, blah, blah, blah.
It's been a long time since I've heard you say that.
Yeah, and that's because I became completely disillusioned with its implementations, again, within present civilization. So I don't think I've ever really asked you, and I kind of want you to talk about it a little bit. What do you think of virtual reality and augmented reality? I mean, is there any way in which it excites you? Is it something, would you ever want to sit down with me on a couch and watch a movie on a gigantic screen, but we're both wearing, nerd helmets?
Oh, hell no!
Okay.
No!
Hell no. Tell me about it. Tell me, give me the scoop. Give me the story.
So, that being said,
Yeah.
there are applications that I approve of visual reality, or virtual reality headsets.
Okay, I want to hear those. But why the no on watching the movie? I mean, I'm with you, but why?
So, first of all, if I put on my virtual reality headset and you put on your virtual reality headset, what are we going to see when we look towards each other?
Well, with the Reality Pro, which I know you didn't watch this. So with the the original name they planned for it apparently was Reality Pro. So I'm still calling it that. Anyway, the Jizz-On Pro, the Vision Pro, will apparently like show you to where you can look at each other and you're actually going to see each other in meat space. So it's more augmented reality.
So like I'll see you wearing the headset?
Yeah. In fact, they do some really odd stuff where like it shows you what the person's seeing. If you can see their eyes completely, then they're paying attention to you and they're looking at you. If they're doing something in AR, it has like this blue cloud in front of it, but you can still see the eyes.
Weird.
And if they're completely immersed, is in 360 degrees, they're completely immersed in what they're doing, it has like a blue cloud, like where you can't see their eyes or anything, so what level of attention that they are paying. So we would kind of see each other in this case, which is more, again, an augmented reality than virtual reality. But please continue with your problems with watching a movie.
So how are we going to snuggle? How are we going to kiss?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's a huge problem.
Yeah. I don't want my head bumping into your headset every time I try to get close.
Yeah, I mean, this is one... I'm with you.
This is where, like, technology crosses the boundary from annoying to really being an impedance.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to guess you have an issue with this, too. Like there really is... we always humans in general. What do you got? You're laughing.
No, I'm listening.
Okay, humans in general.
Not us, but humans.
Yeah, we're not. Well, that's another subject. Okay, so humans in general operate on the looking glass self theory. It's not how I think I look. It's not how you think I look. It's how I think you think I look. Okay, now that's how most people go through life, unconsciously. It's just being self-conscious, right? Like that's kind of the short version of saying it.
Yeah.
Okay. I think via the looking glass self theory, most people would not do that because they'd be like, oh, well, fuck, I look like a goddamn dork wearing this thing, you know? And what if somebody walked by and saw me wearing it? Like, this is part of why this whole idea is dead on arrival.
But if you pay enough for it, then it's cool.
Yeah, I don't know.
The thing is, I just have a problem with not being connected to reality. And being stuck in a virtual reality would be really like challenging for me on a not just a psychological basis, but also a philosophical one. Like I'd start to feel like I'm not actually living my life to its full potential, and I'm just kind of living in this artificial sandbox of a world. No matter how amazing the augmented reality is.
Well, let me play a little Jesus's advocate. I wouldn't say devil's advocate because he's the good guy. Jesus's advocate here. Okay, so.
Okay, well, I already know how this ends because like he was crucified. So.
Woo! No, he went to Japan.
I'm just saying his advocate sucks. All right.
Look, just because you drew a T-shirt that won contest with Jesus on the fucking cross, looked like a goddamn Slayer cover. All right. Oh, yeah. Burning.
Feel the burn.
Feel the burn. And there's Christ in flames on the cross. Just because you did that, now let's keep things historically accurate. Jesus
everyone loved it.
Yes, they did. You won hands down. Jesus, let's be clear. Jesus was COINTELPRO for the Roman fucking Empire, and he ran off to Japan and had kids, got married, the whole thing, and we have evidence that he was.
That fucking traitor.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. So now that we've got that clear, let's. So to play Jesus' advocate, what you just said, what's the difference between that and playing Tears of the Kingdom?
Well, with Tears of the Kingdom, it's really easy for me to just put down the controller and to look away, you know? And there's no mistake about it. Like, I am not when I choose to not be engaged, I am not engaged.
Yeah.
And it's not like a physical part of my body. It's still something that's external.
Yeah.
It's not directly connected to me.
Right. No, that's fair. Like I said, I'm just playing.
Yeah, no, I get it, because when I'm playing that video game, I'm really sucked into that world. But again, I can put down the controller at any time.
Yeah.
And it's not, like, a part of my body. And I'm not saying that Apple would do this, but if there was some nefarious purpose for these headsets, what if there's, like, a mechanism built in where you can't take it off?
Whoa.
I'm just, this is like really far out, maybe a little dystopian sci-fi, but like they could just hit a master switch and then suddenly all these headsets are locked on.
Well, I think you can bust them off. But
I don't know. I'm imagining like straps coming out from either end.
That's the Jizz-On Pro 10.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, I know.
But like when I'm playing a video game, I know that it's a video game. When I'm in reality, there's no mistake about it. That's my senses picking up all that information and conveying it to my consciousness, whatever that is. You know, it's not some electronic thing telling me this is what you're seeing or this is more information about whatever it is you're looking at.
Yeah.
Like I just wouldn't, even if you could trust that, like, and that's a stretch because who knows where that information's coming from.
Yeah. Or
like who programmed that, or there's just too many questions. But like, it is not reality itself.
Yes.
That it's showing you.
Yes. Yeah. So I want to.
So can I go into why it's acceptable in some scenarios?
Can we just pause on that?
Yeah,
I
sure.
want to get into that, but you raise a couple of really great points. One of which I have not talked about ever, and that needs to get talked about. And I think is brilliant of you. So, but before I get to that, let's start with what you were just talking about, is the experiences. Okay. And this speaks to what the best technology does is it empowers the individual. Okay. Now, I want to be very sensitive, first off, to there are people, I don't want to be ableist in this sense. I really don't. Okay. Where there are people who cannot climb a mountain, who cannot do all of these other things. And that's fine. Yes, I wish they could. Okay.
Everyone plays to their own strengths.
Sure. Okay. And so to see the top of a mountain or whatever, have a VR, AR experience that allows for that, amazing. Okay, great. However, the way that every company, I think, knows really to make money is not to actually empower the individual. It is to enable their laziness. We were talking about this actually in the last episode of Sovryn Tech X. And I'm bothered that I think for a lot of people, they will accept. I mean, because yes, okay. The Jizz-On Pro is $3,500 right now. That's obviously 5 generations down the line. It'll cost maybe $600, $700, $1,000. I don't know. It'll be a more reasonable price. I know. And Apple can play that long game. And I understand and respect that. Okay. Just like when the first Apple Watch came out, it took a while. People figured out what they wanted to use it for, and now it's a successful product. Same thing can happen with the Jizz-On Pro. Okay. But here's the deal is, recently you and I, because one of the main things they're showing off is watching movies. I want to go back to that. Is watching movies. Okay. I'm sure musical experiences are a big part of this. We know they're going to be a big part of it. Why? Because Apple has Apple Music anyway. It just makes sense, to have these kind of VR or AR concerts that you can go to. Here's the thing that you're not going to get with that. One of the most memorable experiences I've ever had at a concert was about 2 weeks ago.
Oh.
And you and I went to go see Janet Jackson.
We did?
Janet Jackson was amazing. You know what was not amazing? Some Karen behind us screaming at the top of her lungs, non-stop. And I don't know how that was possible, because this was not a short show, and she did not stop.
And it was the same tone the entire time.
Woo! Like she couldn't have had any idea what Janet Jackson was even singing, because there was no shift in what she was. It's not like, suddenly, Black Cat came on and she started like screaming a little louder. No, it was the same damn tone the whole time. She was trashed as fuck, annoying as fuck, and concerts are loud, sure, right?
She was louder than the music.
Yes. It was one ear, whatever ear of ours, yours and mine, because we were right next to each other, whatever ear of ours was facing towards her, that was the one that we couldn't hear out of at the end of the show. We could hear out of the other one fine, but it's all because of her goddamn screaming. So here's the thing. At the same time, I wouldn't trade that for the world, because I'm never going to fucking forget that.
Or like the first time we went to see Dream Theater, and there was some drunk guys in front of us that were so into it. They really loved Dream Theater, and they were standing up, raising the horns. They were so excited. And some guy next to us was like, "Hey, can you sit down, please?"
Yeah.
And then
a fight ensued.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. And the ushers thought that you and I must have been very well-to-do people, and they kind of got in front of us and are having us stand back, and they're like, "Are you all right? Are you all right?" Somehow we're VIPs or something, which I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm standing next to the hottest woman on the fucking planet. Whatever the case may be, they were making sure we're okay, But that's the thing. Is that all of these memories, the thing that makes live concerts and live music so great, the fuck-ups, right? The screw-ups, or even at Janet Jackson. I mean, I was looking around and it was so funny to see all these, women in their 40s and 50s and whatever, and they're dancing, imagining that they're, 16 or something like that, but they're not, and it shows. And just like all this shit going on that makes it part of the experience. You're not going to get that because it's just the human element. It's the randomness, the chaos of the universe, right? That you're not going to get in that perfect fucking... I mean, it was annoying enough watching this Apple fucking presentation because it was pitch perfect. It was so fucking perfect. In fact, what do you got?
And you didn't have to pee in a public restroom and have some creepy guy comment on your dick?
Oh, that was insane. Yeah, see, that's the other thing you don't get. Like, I mean, it's fine. I know I have a huge dick. I don't need another guy to, like, look over and go, whoa, that's a big one. Which, by the way, Ellen can attest to. This happened at this concert. It was unbelievable. But these...
Just part of the unforgettable experience.
Right. So... Or, you don't get the surprise of when you're going to see Janet Jackson and you're like, oh, wait, there is an opening act. And it's ludicrous. And you see that the day before you go and see Fast X. That's insane. Luda, what's up? So these are the things you're not going to get in virtual reality. These are the things that make these concerts fucking great. I'm straight edge as they fucking come. I don't think it's a concert if I don't smell weed. Are you going to make an aromameter, Apple, at some point? Like what?
Yeah, smell-o-vision.
Yeah, right.
Already been tried. Many
times, actually. Al Bundy tried that one. No, really. Like, you could get this pack, because Fox is doing Revenge of the Nerds 3, and they had Al Bundy hosting the whole thing. Of course, I'm the only goddamn person on the planet that remembers this, but whatever. And you could get from, like, a gas station or a store or whatever, you could get, like, these cards, and whenever certain things would come up on the screen, you had to scratch it and sniff what was going on in the movie. And actually, it wasn't Revenge of the Nerds 3, it was Revenge of the Nerds 4. But, point being, it's been tried. and nobody likes it. Nobody wants to smell the goddamn movie. So, anyway.
Yeah, you can't create the concert smell without having the actual concert.
Right.
The smell of marijuana and spilled beer and, people's perfumes and shampoo smells floating through the breeze.
All these elements, like, you're not going to get it. What makes concerts fucking concerts are not going to be there. And that sucks, So, and you can say, well, it works great for other things. Yeah, but here's the rub, okay? Nothing, in my opinion, here, I'm going to say this at the front, and this gets to your brilliant point that I mentioned that I haven't talked about ever, and that really should have been talked about for years, okay? And I want to say this in the kindest way that I possibly can, but I'm really not good at that.
No, you're an asshole sometimes.
Yeah, right. So I'm just going to say it. This is for lonely fucking people. Okay? Because as much as Apple tried to make this Jizz-On Pro about connecting with people via FaceTime and all this shit, like I said, technology is supposed to be about empowering the individual. Okay? And ultimately, even the internet is not about keeping us separated. It's about bringing us closer together. Or at least I'm sure that's what a lot of people would like it to be. I certainly would. And let's say somehow that through your internet connectivity or whatever, that somehow you did finally come together in real life. Like, this device, my point ultimately is that this device interferes with, with connection in the room, with other people sitting next to you. Because, you can't kiss with this fucking thing on. You're just going to be, you're going to be bashing fucking headsets like hammerhead sharks.
But
right?
if they're not in the room, if they're far away, then it works wonderfully.
Well, that's up to debate. Certainly they showed some impressive shit as far as that goes. But again, like, what is the point of this stuff? Like, they were really selling this as this replaces your television. This replaces, all of these other, even though they showed off Apple TV earlier on. Like, the way that they were showing this off, it really felt like, no, this is just for lonely sods.
So you can watch YouTube videos at any point in time without having to connect to the television.
Right.
As well as watch movies on this thing. So basically, like, any entertainment you want to take part in, you can do through this device. Is that what you're saying this is for?
Yeah, it can even, like, it can connect to your MacBook, and it can be your computer screen. You know, all of which is impressive. I'm not taking anything away from the technical impressiveness of this. But I am saying that it really eliminates, in my opinion, and it's not something that it can't replace the technology that you can share. And for me, if it's all about experiences, things and experiences, in my opinion, are nothing unless they can be shared. And I've been on the well spectrum back and forth many times in my life. And every time that I start to have, like, so much around me, the first thing I realize is all of this shit is meaningless if I can't share it. And this device is anti-sharing. And, if I'm to quote the Care Bears, that makes it anti-caring. In my opinion, it's anti-connection. As much as Apple's trying to say this is about connecting, I think it's the exact opposite.
It's about connecting your devices.
Yeah, it connects your devices. Apple's pro at that, for sure. I mean, and they're damn good at it. Bravo. But
yeah, and I wonder if there's some people that would, like, sell their TV or their computer monitor now that they have this. They don't need it.
Oh, I think a lot of people will. But really, I absolutely, that's when you said that about, how can you, like, cuddle or hug each other during a movie or something like that, or for fuck's sake, what if you're watching, hell, I cried during Titanic. Or if I'm putting on Star Trek 2, which I watch that at least once a year, I'm fucking bawling into this thing. Like, it's not going to work.
It's not good for the electronics.
No.
See, that's one thing that electronics will never be good at, is tolerating salt water.
Yeah, some are better than others, but salt water, just pure corrosion. You're totally right. Yeah. That's
how we defeat the AI, is we cry on it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, here's a, yeah. you're totally right. Everybody's like, oh, well, if you connect solar power to AI and we're fucking screwed. And it's like, no, don't worry. 2/3 of the planet's ocean. We got these fuckers. I mean, pirates have been doing it forever. Walk the plank, AI. You're done. So anyway, but that's besides the point. Great point of view to bring up as well. But that's the thing is this, like, this just isn't going to allow people to really connect over genuinely great art and genuinely great experiences. Like, no, I'm sorry. When I get done scaling a mountain with my wife, I'm going to make out like crazy with her when we get to the top, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, you can't do that in an AR or VR experience, because you're just going to bash helmets like rams competing with each other. It's just fucking stupid.
Yeah, again, I could see this really working well for people who are trying to connect over long distance.
Yep.
It might enable a bit more of that physical connection.
Mm-hmm.
Although I don't know what the people would look like in that virtual reality, if they would actually look like themselves or if they'd look like an avatar of some kind, which I'm guessing is going to be the case. But
yeah, there's a mixture. Yeah.
So, like, as far as when this technology will work, I feel like it's kind of scenarios like that where you want to interact with someone or something at a remote distance. Mm-hmm. And one case where that is often true is in training scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if it's in a place that's difficult to access or dangerous to access.
Yes.
Now, the first time I ever tried VR was probably 8 years ago. It was in a university, and they had this really heavy, elaborate headset. It was kind of before these goggles were a thing.
Yeah, before the Oculus Quest or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, sure.
So this thing, you pull it down from the ceiling. It was this full headset. It was kind of like those video games in arcades where you pull on the visual display over your head. But it was a training scenario for firefighters. So, like, the building's on fire, you gotta, find your way out or whatever. And then you'd get rated on this, however you scored.
Yeah.
Even recently, in the biotech space, this is being implemented for, operators who have to go into clean rooms to practice working aseptic technology in a way that does not require them to use any of that expensive material.
Right.
Or, unexperienced people going into these clean rooms could potentially cause some sort of contamination, which is also expensive because you have to spend a lot of time cleaning that up. So I think that there's really good use cases for something like this.
Yeah.
That being said, it doesn't need to be consumer technology.
Right.
Not at that level.
Right. No, and I completely agree with you on that. Even Google Glass, I was like, well, yeah, in the enterprise space, in professional settings, yeah, sure, rock and roll, use it. I imagine you could have great things done with that, and that was even at a better price. I have a hard time believing a lot of employers are going to. I agree with you completely. I'm just saying, practically, I don't think a lot of employers are going to spend $3,500. Something that's almost a worker's month's wage. Just to have a fancy getup along those lines. But yeah, and this gets into weird areas, because part of what I've actually come to appreciate about Apple just in the past year or even the past few months is that they are usually a company about consumers, about like your average customer, and not so much about enterprise and cloud and all. Yes, they have a cold cloud industry, but they're not all about that, which I like that. Like, I want tech companies to think about the individual, not about companies themselves. But they did show off it being used in professional spaces, which you kind of have to. So I agree with you there. I totally agree. That's a great place for it to be. That makes a lot of sense. Any other positive areas for the technology?
I think there's probably some application for it within video games, but other than that, no. I can't think of any.
Yeah, Nintendo already kind of tried this with Labo, which was like this kind of cardboard getup, which they abandoned pretty quickly when I think they realized most people weren't going to be on top of it. I would not be surprised if Nintendo somehow jumps on this to some degree. And I don't necessarily, they already have games in the App Store, in the iOS App Store. But I could see them wanting to dabble again in AR and VR in a console fashion.
Yeah, I think you've also brought this up too, is that like it could be a great way to design very personalized scenarios that would help you feel better in some way, like maybe confront a fear that you have, or like relive experiences from your past. So in that sense, it could be sort of like a therapeutic device.
Yeah, it can. And to Apple's credit, they did, even though I thought it was kind of BS, they did talk about mental health. And they're like, this is a real thing, and we're going to try and help out with this in whatever ways our technology can. I think it was ultimately kind of nonsense, but it could be used for that. A part of me feels like the powers that be just don't want that to ever be a thing, because the powers that be thrive and rely and exist upon trauma. And fear. Yeah, so I don't know. Anyway, but that's me being kind of conspiratorial, I suppose. Yeah, I'd love for it to be used in therapeutic ways, to like reenact negative memories and be able to, deal with those. And instead of having to do role plays, which can be challenging for a lot of people, and this could be more private. Yeah. Okay. So that in another world, I think that could be a completely valid use for virtual reality.
Yeah. When would we ever get to that level of design, though? Like personalized design?
Yeah, I don't know that it'd even be that hard. I think we could get there. There's always a segment of the population where virtual reality technology is going to make them sick. Like, it's just natural.
Yeah, it's the motion sickness.
Yeah, it's like 10% of the population. It's just always going to be that way for them. And But yeah, anyway, I think we could get to that. And I don't think it's too far away. Might even be sort of possible now, but again, there's no real money in it. Like I feel like it'd be considered, or at least right now it'd be so niche that, it's not viable to do. And that's kind of one of the realizations I came to a few years ago, and why I stopped talking about virtual reality in a positive sense, is that, you just hit the hard realization that so much of this stuff, yeah, it's a great idea, but there's not enough market for it because people aren't going to use it for that. They just want to exist in a TV show, which was something that Disney was showing off during this presentation, but that's a whole other subject.
You mean you can, like, walk around outside wearing these things and imagine that they're, like, dinosaurs still walking the earth?
That's a good... See, everything they were showing was all in, like, a room, in a very controlled environment, in an environment that was mapped out. So this isn't something that you can walk around... I don't think this is something you can walk around with, outside. I know they want it to be there, but I don't think it's there. But they showed where, like, you can become a superhero, like a Marvel superhero. Anyway, we'll see more. I'll believe it when I see it, because some of this stuff I was like, no, I don't think you figured out that much yet. And it was really BS. Like, yeah, the sticker shock of $3,500 for these things. Okay, yep, I expect that. But when they said, and it'll be coming out in the beginning of 2024, it's like, you're announcing this way too early. Like, what the fuck were you thinking? Because if I have to wait 6 months or however, or 7 or 8, I don't think your technology is ready for prime time. And thus, I don't want to hear from you about it. It's like Steve Jobs always did the classic, and one more thing. And he'd introduce a new something. It'd be the iPad or the iPhone in one sense. Or, later on there would be the watch would get introduced. But you could buy it that day, pretty much. Because it was done, it was ready. And I'm not comfortable at all with the fact that we have to wait months to even for the average person to get their hands on this thing. Sticker shock or nothing, that doesn't matter. The timeline is more proof to me that this is dead on arrival. But anyway, any other positive things you could think of with the tech? It's okay if there isn't, because I don't think there's a whole lot.
No, I already said I think that's it.
Yeah. And I think you really, like, you kind of debunked even the notion of watching movies on it. Because if you can't, cuddle or make out or get a blowjob during the movie, I mean, what's the point, right?
Yeah, that'd be kind of crazy.
Anyway, so okay, well, I teased earlier. We got some time. We're looking pretty good. Okay, we can get into a couple things.
Yes.
All right, let's do it. So, you know what? Let's do one, and then we'll get to the other perhaps another time. But this is the one that I really wanted to talk about.
Woo!
Are you excited that we're not doing two?
Oh yeah, I'm excited to talk about being a vegetarian.
Yeah, right.
Hell yeah!
Yeah. So now let's be clear. Of course, we've talked about our diet and lifestyle many times. Okay. We would call ourselves vegetarians. Like, we are not vegan.
Yeah, so I think we're vegetarian 99% of the time. There's a small percentage of the time where, like, yeah, there's, like, eggs in something that we're eating.
You're saying we're vegan 99% of the time.
Yes, we're vegan 99% of the time.
Yeah.
Then there's a small percentage of the time where, like, you go over to someone's house and they make you eggs and cheesy toast for breakfast or something. Or even eating baked goods. I mean, you can't consume a baked good made by, any average person and expect it to be vegan. Like, it's going to have all the traditional eggs and milk in it. So and like some of our salad dressings too. I think those have dairy.
Right, the one we just had it was Caesar with Asiago cheese.
But that's the only dairy we'll consume the entire day is that salad dressing.
Yeah.
So I would say we're like 99% vegan.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, another reason I don't like to call myself vegan is I do, and I've talked about this before, I do think vegan is like a full lifestyle in the sense that, like, you don't wear or buy anything leather. You don't.
So I agree with that because of the farming practices,
Sure.
and the murderous industry. But I think when it comes to used goods, they're already used. They're out there.
Yeah,
I don't really see the harm in that.
Yeah, but and I'm with you on buying used goods. I mean, I always buy used and refurbished, like pretty much every time, and most of the time you can find that.
And the damn tricky thing about leather goods is that they last forever.
Well,
and that's what makes them so great.
Yes.
But
yeah.
I don't want to fund that industry.
Yeah, no, and it is an ugly industry, which certainly we could talk about that for quite a while as well. Yeah, I mean, so the thing is, though, I don't buy used or refurbished because of, necessarily some kind of... Well, I don't do it because of the animals, right? Like, I don't do it out of a vegan sense. I do it out of the sense of, no, the ecologically correct thing to do, or the ecologically concerned thing to do is to what's already produced, drive it into the ground, before you actually make something new.
But you also care about the animals' lives,
Very much.
Don't you?
Yes, I do. Very much.
Okay,
very
all
much.
Right, just checking.
Well, you were very gracious, and you got me a beautiful birthday present, which was this amazing leather jacket. And I wanted a leather jacket, partly because, it lasts. I mean, I've had pleather jackets. I've had all the, leather mock-up styles, whatever. And inside of 6 months to a year, they just start falling apart. And that's kind of a major issue. But I wanted it to be used because, yes, I also don't want to support the leather industry, like you said.
And you care about the animals.
And yes, exactly. I care very, very much about the animals. So that's part of my overall ecological concern. But that's the thing. Like, if I want to buy like an ancient book, right? Okay. It's 9 times out of 10, it's going to have a leather cover. In fact, almost 100%, pretty much 100% of the time, it's going to have a leather cover. Now, a vegan would say, I don't touch it. Like, oh, no. And I can't go that distance. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that just doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, well, yes, I agree. It's distasteful, and I feel like any
Sure.
leather object in some way is tainted. But... I don't think that means you should waste the sacrifice that animal made.
Right.
By giving its skin up to whatever previous person decided that they needed to kill this animal to take its skin and make stuff out of it.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not about to go line up and tell a lot of Native Americans that their traditional ways are unethical or something like that,
Yeah, because those people really are living off the land.
Right, exactly. So that's my point, is that, like, I can't go that distance. I can't take that kind of a hard stance for multiple reasons. A, I'm not going to tell other people how to live. B, I like to think I am actually pretty pie in the sky, but at the same time, there are practicalities that one deals with. And, yeah, I'm not going to be that hardcore. Right. And that's why, even if, because again, you're right. Most of the time we do eat essentially vegan. But I wouldn't call myself that just because then I feel like you're really opening yourself up to the Puritans who are like, oh, you did that. Oh, you got this. Oh, that book's leather. Oh, and it's stop. Right. Because that's not helping anybody. So, anyway, that's my point on that.
Yeah, so we are vegetarians.
Yes.
And there's like a million different reasons that I'd love to talk about at any time about why we're vegetarians and why you should be a vegetarian too.
Yes. But the funny thing is, speaking of problems with vegans, I read this fascinating story, and it's titled "The Death of the Vegetarian."
Which one?
Right. I guess it means the royal vegetarian, which, I don't know, there's got to be some royal vegetarian out there. But anyway, well, you're a Native American princess. You're a royal vegetarian.
Yeah,
there we go.
That's right.
Yes. So...
Wait, I don't want to die.
No. You're right. So the point that this story, we don't have to actually, I mean, I could put the link in the show notes, but the point of the story was an interesting one, of unintended consequences. And what it got at was that because plant-based and essentially veganism has become such a force that it's actually wiping out the vegetarian diet.
Are we going to read this story?
I guess we could read some of it. It's a little bit lengthy.
I'll just pick out a couple of the important
Okay, well, here's the byline from, or the subheader. It's from the Telegraph, so it's out of the UK. Vegetarians outnumber vegans by almost 2 million in the UK, but they're in danger of being cancelled by a plant-based takeover of the nation's menus. Here we go. Not long ago, if you wanted a vegetarian meal, most restaurants offered at least one option, as long as you weren't in a tiny village or France. If that veggie option involved cheese, then all the better. If it involved a bean burger, well, at least you knew roughly what you were eating. Today, vegetarians are starting to get annoyed. The once trusty meat-free option, they say, is being replaced by a vegan one. The Vegetarian Society, I guess it's a thing in the UK, has been receiving complaints from members who are peeved to find veggie dishes containing dairy and eggs are often absent from menus, jettisoned in favor of plant-based vegan burgers or vegan chili. Now, that really gets at the heart of this, of what's going on.
Does it?
Yeah.
I feel like that's such a lame concern. Like, oh, my food doesn't have cheese on it anymore.
Yeah, no, okay.
But I think there's a different point to this story.
There is. It's just, it's so long. it would be...
You can summarize. It's okay.
Tough. Yeah, well, that's what I'm going for here. So part of the main point is, or one of the points that people are making in this case, is that, okay, there's all these plant-based foods. Like, all right, so I'm not eating an actual egg omelet, but now I'm eating like Just Egg, or, which is a brand, right? I'm eating all of these frankenfoods, okay? These lab-created foods that I don't know what the fuck they are. I don't know what's in that Impossible Burger. I don't know what's in, it's not the black bean burger, right? Like was mentioned before, okay? And so their concern ultimately, and I think it's a very right one, their concern is that they're not eating real foods any longer. They're eating these monstrosities that vegans have developed to mimic animal-based foods.
Yes, I agree. While you were talking, I was just reviewing some of this a little further, and it does sound like one of the things they're saying is that vegetarians want to be able to eat cheese, which, like, okay, I get it. Cheese is really delicious, and it's addictive.
Yep.
And the fact that restaurants are treating all non-meat eaters the same is kind of turning a blind eye to a large portion of the market that goes to the restaurant.
Larger than vegans. Like a larger portion of the market than there are vegans. Yes.
Yeah, like vegetarians want to eat grilled cheese sandwiches.
Right.
Why take that off the menu?
Right.
And it's like taking all of the non-meat eaters and treating them exactly the same so they can only eat vegan options. And while you're at it, why not make it gluten-free too, so you can throw in the other weirdos who don't eat gluten and just have them all in the same group. They can all eat the same food. If they're not going to eat meat, then why should they have a choice?
Yeah.
And that, I agree. That is kind of concerning, and that's something, as a consumer, that should be spoken up about. Like, if you want restaurants to have more choices, that's, you're right to say, like, I'm not going to eat here until you start providing, like, a vegetarian option as well as a vegan option.
Yeah. And it's, what's really kind of sad about this is, like, in one sense, I have so much respect for, shall we say, vegetarian culture, like, that came out of, say, the 60s and 70s. Even I know it existed long before then. But that's when it got really kind of vociferous. It got kind of, loud. And, there's a reason that there had vegetarian options at restaurants and all this stuff became a thing, because enough people raised a stink about it. But then we got to and what's amazing is that required, and this is what I love about them, it required no legislation.
No.
it was a completely cultural change because people said, that's a fucking enough. Okay? I'm not going to eat that animal. You give me some shit that I can eat or I'm taking my business elsewhere. Boom. And you get enough people saying that and it just happened. And, market categories opened up, restaurants, like now label everything, you know what I mean? All of these wonderful things that happen without any legislation whatsoever. Government didn't have to get involved at all and it changed the world. And that's awesome, right? And so what's happened is we're at the other side of that mountain and vegetarians are like, okay, well, there, we changed the world. We can relax now. But then vegans show up.
And the changes are not over yet.
And it's like, oh, that's not good enough. Okay.
So even in my lifetime, and I've been a vegetarian/vegan for 14 years, off and on, switching between vegetarian and vegan. And there's been huge leaps and bounds in the food technology, the food science of what is in the freezer section of grocery stores for what's available for vegetarians and vegans.
Yeah.
Because it used to be you'd have bean burgers, veggie burgers, which, again, you know what you're eating with those.
Yep.
Or soy-based protein burgers, which is basically like tofu, but in burger form.
Which, by the way, just quick, you can make a bean burger at home. I mean, I've made them. Fuck, and I'm an idiot. Like, I mean, and it's not hard. You all natural ingredients. You make them. It's nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like oats and beans and some herbs. And
compressed.
There you go.
Boom. Put it in the oven. Done.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, and like these soy-based tofu-y burgers, that was like the peak level of processing for any vegetarian food at that time.
Yes.
When I was first vegan. Now it's the food science has progressed to where you're right, you don't know what you're eating, and you actually have to take a whole freaking science course to understand the ingredients on the list.
Yeah.
Like, with some of these artificial meats, they genetically modified the plants to create heme iron so that it tastes more like blood. And then there's like all of this processing with highly refined coconut oil and other plant-based proteins to turn it into this like spongy meat textured thing that also is greasy when you fry it, which traditionally that's been one of the complaints against vegetarian or vegan like fake meat or whatever, is that it's dry compared to regular meat. Sure. Because it doesn't have a ton of fat in it.
Right.
Because it's healthy.
Right.
Anyway, so there's a lot of engineering that goes into modern day fake meat. And that's not something that everyone's okay with consuming. I mean, you and I are cases of that, of course, where like we want to eat plant-based. We don't want to eat something that is based on plants but is no longer a plant. It's like so far removed from plant food that you can't even recognize it anymore. Yeah. It's not even like a caricature of its former self. Right. It's just a monstrosity.
Right. Yeah. Now, when we go to restaurants or if we go to a friend's house or something and, they're being so accommodating to us and being like, oh yeah, well, I got these meatless or, got these Beyond Burgers or whatever they got, or we're at a restaurant. Okay, well, the vegetarian option. All right, they have an Impossible Burger at the Hard Rock Cafe. Fine.
Or like the fake chicken burgers.
Yeah, right. And it's like, okay, that's what's there. We'll do it. Fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's not like we need to eat these things because we miss meat so much and we just have to have the taste of flesh.
No. I mean, I can say this, like, I'm disgusted now by the thought of meat and the taste. Like I'm just disgusted. And like, even if I kind of get a whiff of, and there's times where we've gotten like little screw ups, at restaurants and we bring it home and afterwards and I eat it and I'm like, oh fuck, I know what this is. And it disgusts me. Like I'm to that point and I'm a fucking goat. You understand? Like I'll eat anything, I mean,
it's true.
Right. I mean,
I've made some bad food before and you still eat it.
I mean, not only that, there was a time, like I was home alone and I'm like, well, I can't cook. So what am I going to make? It's like, oh, there's a can of beans and you had to pull the can out of my mouth because I just started gnawing through the can, and so like, I'll eat anything, but man, I'd rather eat that metal than that fucking
One time I tried to make this salad dressing, and it ended up having like 3 times too much vinegar in it.
Ooh.
He still ate it.
Yeah, right. So I'll eat anything, but I'm telling you, I'm fucking grossed out. And I don't mean gross like ooh, ugh, you know. I have a really strong stomach. Like none of the manhood's not in question here, folks. Okay, I'm just telling you that I think it tastes disgusting. Ooh, thank you. I'm just saying it tastes disgusting. And anyway,
it turns my stomach
right.
to think about the
right.
you know, like weeks-old rotting flesh.
Right. Yeah.
And
so,
like the conditions that meat came from.
Yeah. Yeah. And so here's the issue for me. You know, with like this idea of the death of the vegetarian and all of this. Okay. Like I'm standing with the vegetarians on this one. Because the vegans are missing the point. Okay? You didn't... like, vegans are so... Like, all those strictures I talked about earlier, right? Like, oh, I won't touch leather. I won't do this. I won't do that. Like, I care about the animals. I care about the earth. I care about the ecology and all this stuff. Great. Awesome. Okay. But they're missing that, you know, it is a... Their argument is that it's a lifestyle. Okay, then it's a lifestyle. Like, it's more than...
How much money do you want to spend on your food?
Well, sure.
Because these engineered foods are, in some ways, more costly than just plain meat.
Well, that's the thing. So they're more expensive. They're also, again, you really don't know what the fuck's, you know, what food science they're doing on it most of the time. It's ecologically disastrous.
Yeah, actually, I think we did a whole series on this about a year ago, talking about how... meat substitutes specifically are like the same, if not more, ecologically unfriendly.
Right. Yeah. So this is the thing. You're eating this diet because, well, you know what? Maybe that's unfair, but it's sad. Like I guess it's fine if you're eating this diet because you care about the animals, but like part of the reason I eat this diet with a smile on my face is because I know it's better for me.
Yeah.
You know, and because it's healthier. And because, in ways also, I mean, certainly I do like the fact that it's cheaper. Why? Because where do you go and get the food? No, you don't get it out of the fucking freezer section. You get it out of the section where, like, the farmer put the goddamn produce. You know? And I mean, you want to talk about farm to table. Holy shit. So...
Yeah, and, like, when you say it's better for you, that's a whole subject in itself,
right.
too. Like, it's better compared to what? But then also, like, what does better mean? Does that just mean you feel better?
Right.
Does that mean that, like, you're healthier in general?
Right. And as I've said for years, even when I was a meat eater on Sovryn Tech, as I've said for years, the reason that at first, why every diet you jump on, whether it's vegetarian, South Beach, vegan, whatever the fuck you jump on, the reason why, you know, if there's some kind of fad diet or something, or even paleo, whatever. The reason why at first you start losing a ton of weight is because every single diet, especially diet book, starts off with this first rule. Stop eating processed foods. Okay? That's why it works at first. Every one of them. You know, and you're like, wow, I feel amazing. Why do you feel amazing? It's not because of the Mediterranean diet or the South Beach diet. It's because you stopped eating processed foods. It's the number one rule that I think if I could get, you know, even if people didn't stop eating meat, the best thing that could happen to the whole world is that they stop eating processed foods. And the problem is there's as much processed foods in the plant-based space as there is in the meat space.
Yeah, yeah. And there's vegetarians out there, vegans, that are doing it for purely selfish reasons. They just want to lose weight and be fit, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe there's more to it than that, but that's kind of their primary driver, is they want to, you know, look good in a bathing suit. And that's fine. But, like, if you eat that fake processed meat and, like, are happy to do it and are doing it all the time, that processed food is causing just as much inflammation in your body as meat would.
Right.
Because it's that unhealthy, because it's been processed.
Right.
There's like fats and salts added, both of which can cause inflammation in your body.
Yeah.
It's not really a healthier choice.
No, it's plant-based junk food.
Yes.
Is really all that it is. And so that's when I say, no, these vegans are just missing the point. Like, do you not understand why you're deciding on this diet? Like, it blows my mind. And the fact that, again, I mean, it's ironic to say that, yeah, the vegetarians are absolutely in the right here. Like, they are better off. Just give me the straight egg. Just give me the cheese. You know, don't give me that wacky shit. I don't know who knows what that was made out of. The fucking pink slime at McDonald's. I don't know. You know, they're totally on about this. And this is a weird thing. This is where you get, you pull too far back, you know?
Yeah, and I think it's a mistake in the first place to try and mimic meat.
Yeah.
When vegetables have such a huge range and variety of flavors and textures and smells.
Right.
Like, you don't need to fake being meat.
Right.
There's so many good things already out there. It's just that people haven't tried them, or they don't have access to it, or they've never had it tried. They've never tried it cooked the right way.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in the quote-unquote Western world, you know, when Pythagoras excluded, when vegetarianism and even veganism started, and you read the books from like the 18th century, late 18th century and 19th century, the reason they're talking about going vegetarian or vegan has nothing to do with the animals. It has to do with the health benefits. That's their argument for it. Okay? So again, you could say even at the beginning of this, even before it was about the animals, the point was about the health. You're not improving shit eating this processed crap, you know, and offering up these frankenfoods. You know, the beauty of it is that you get to, you know, I mean, well, I guess they could just enrich it with B12, and they probably do, but these are just so many of the things that you miss when you don't eat as, you know, also arguably as raw as possible, you know, and I don't mean like a raw diet, you know, like a raw vegan diet, like that's a whole other not can of worms, or can of not worms. How about that? That's a whole other thing, but
it's a whole other can of beans.
Yeah, there you go. When I say raw, I mean less processed, or not processed at all. Maybe not even washed off right away. You know? Yeah,
I mean, the B12 is another complicated story because
Sure.
we live in a world that's so polluted that you don't want to eat
Good point.
or drink whatever's out there.
Good point.
Because you don't know what else you're consuming. And that's why supplements are recommended, or fortified foods.
Yeah.
And I don't really have a problem with that. I mean, I'm the kind of person, as your regular listeners probably already know, I don't like taking supplements. You know, I think that's kind of a ridiculous thing. Like, you can absorb nutrients better from the whole food source. And for B12, there really isn't one. Unless it's, like, bacteria in the water or in the soil.
Yeah, no, you get B12 by eating the dirt. I mean, but anyway.
Yeah, but again, like, modern farming practices, I wouldn't trust eating that.
No, I'm with you on that. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, so I mean, do you have any other thoughts on this?
Like in regards to what? I mean, I have a ton of thoughts. Again, I could talk about being vegetarian and vegan forever.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm just saying that I feel this is sad that it's just, you know, you can't celebrate the win that you got, for one. And now it's being so exclusionary, you know, of an entire, I mean, yeah, okay, what can the person do? Don't go to that restaurant. You know, do they have to vote with their dollar again? I guess so. You know, it's just, it's, my opinion, it's really sad to see this happen in really what is in the light of a different type of fundamentalism.
Yeah, I don't know. This is kind of a whodunit scenario, because you're saying it's the vegans' fault for pushing too far. Like, the vegetarians got what they wanted, but then the vegans were still unsatisfied, so they demanded from the restaurants that they be fed vegan food. But then, on the other hand, all these restaurants are so naive that they think that vegetarians will be happy eating vegan food. And that's not true. The case.
No, that's fair. That's fair to bring up. It's fair to bring up. And actually, I can imagine a lot of chefs who are probably like, oh yeah, oh good. Okay, so I don't have to come up with like some kind of weird, some weird unique vegetarian dish or something and or vegan dish, and I can just like use frankenfoods that cook the way I'm used to cooking. So it could probably come out of laziness, but there's laziness rearing up its ugly head again.
Yeah, again, like most chefs at restaurants, they cook for normal, standard American diets.
Yeah.
You know, making something vegetarian, that's a tough one. You know, how do you remove the meat from this and substitute some other sort of protein? You know, that's something that has taken a very long time for most restaurants to catch on to. And now there's these people who won't even eat cheese out there or eggs. So that's a whole other challenging thing for them to, like, it's a creative challenge that they just can't overcome. So what do? They make one food to serve all of the minority dieters.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. And, you know, I'm going to be fair here as well. In the United States, this probably isn't as much of an issue. And the reason I say that is, in Europe, this is a bit of a trope, but it exists for a reason. Trying to customize foods and, like, really get great service, like great customized your way kind of service, is a challenge.
Yeah, because like in Europe, they have this attitude of if you're going to a restaurant to eat something that the chef has prepared, you eat what the chef has prepared. And you don't complain about it because he's made this creation. It's one thing and it's perfect.
Right. And I mean, I want to say, like, this is terrible. I hate this kind of argument, but I'm going to say it anyway. I have friends who, in the past and even now, like, who come to America and they want to stay here, and a big part of it is just because they want the fucking service. Like they want the your way kind of service, you know, that they don't get in Europe. And again, they're Europeans.
So maybe it's easier here in America to customize your food, but there are other countries in the world, like in certain parts of Asia specifically, or even Africa, where a vegan diet is just normal, and they don't even have a word for it because it's just what they've always eaten.
No, you're totally right. You're totally right. I mean, one of the easiest places to eat vegan or vegetarian is the Middle East. Easy as pie.
Yeah.
There, you know, in most areas. Or in Asia. Or, I mean, boy, you want the best vegan or vegetarian food on the planet? Boy, go to India.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, I mean, talk about eating like a king. So that's a good point to bring up as well. That this is also a very Western problem. But yeah, I mean, my point that, right, in America, you know, you really can say, no, could you put cheese on that? And they will, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you can essentially, any ingredients you see on the menu, you can tell the waiter or waitress, yeah, I want something made with all this, you know.
That being said,
yeah,
it's hard to trust that system when so many times they get it wrong.
That's true. That's very true. That's very true.
But I agree. It is an option.
Yeah, I mean, we are in the land of the secret McDonald's menu. So, you know, this is a place where weird things can get created on demand.
Oh, God, you said McDonald's and I just wanted to throw up.
Yeah, I know.
Not that I advocate violence, but I would not be upset if all of the McDonald's of the world simultaneously exploded.
But those golden arches need to burn down.
Where do those golden arches lead? Yeah. The flames of hell, motherfucker.
All right. I think we should wrap the show up with that. Now that we've called for insurrection. You can't go further, you know.
I mean, you want to talk about Frankenfood.
Yeah, I already mentioned the pink slime earlier. And
the only way you can kill that thing is with a flamethrower.
Spaceballs, a flamethrower!
I mean, really, even time can't kill those things. Like, you lose a chicken nugget in your car for 4 years and it looks like the same.
Right, it's the Big Mac that was lost in the garage for 15 years and they got it back. And the reporter said, I think you could eat that. Like, it looks just like it did 15 years ago. This looks great. Yeah.
You gotta throw it in the flames.
Go for it.
It needs to die. That is unnatural.
The fire purifies everything.
It does.
All right. So before we get in more trouble, any closing thoughts, Ellen?
Dr. Michael Greger has some really great books about eating a plant-based diet. If you are interested in living a longer, healthier life.
And the joy of carbs.
Oh, yes. Yes, the joy of carbs.
Yeah.
Carbs are not the enemy.
No, they are not.
They're your friend.
Yes. In fact, I can honestly say, like, I went down from, I guess, it's been the past year. I went down from like 240, 245 down to, I had gotten down to 195. And I was eating a shit ton of carbs. Tons. So just don't, anyway.
If you read Dr. Michael Greger's books, you'll understand why it's not a problem if you're eating a vegetarian diet to eat so many carbs.
Right. But, of course, just the disclaimer, everybody's different. Everybody's body reacts to things differently. Some people have varying reasons that they have to eat meat or that it's best that they eat meat or that they do this or that and blah, blah, blah. And vegetarianism might not work for them. Their hair falls out. Who knows? I just want to make that abundantly clear, get that disclaimer out there before, that way people know to point the pitchforks at the golden arches and not us. So, all right.
Or check out nutritionfacts.org.
Yeah, there you go. Wow. All right, nice plug.
Thank you. I'm not even getting paid for that.
No. Just the payment of, the nice sleep of the just. No.
Yes, I would feel so much better knowing that there are other people out in the world who are going down this path and improving their lives, and it's completely, self-empowerment all the way. And you get to live longer and healthier life. What's not to be happy about? No, you're right. You're right. I want people to set McDonald's on fire.
Light McDonald's on fire. Burn it to the ground. Every single one of them.
Fire!
They have the fats are in the food. It will melt. It'll burn.
Yeah, just like a candle.
All you have to do, just cut the line where it goes into the fryolator and light a match. All right, so we're going to end with that. And we will see all of you on the other side. And
Woo!
woo. Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing.
I believe I can fly.